Welcome faculty, staff, families, and loved ones, and most importantly, welcome Minnesota West Community and Technical College graduating class of 2020 to this virtual event, your graduation. Blue Jays, it's hard to escape the event dominating our conscience, the global pandemic. But today, we commune purely for a joyous celebration, one that forgoes today's immediacy and provides for a lifetime of opportunity. Today, we are celebrating your perseverance, a tremendous academic accomplishment during an unparalleled time. I know for many of you, the road to today was not easy and was made even more difficult over the past 6 weeks. But reflect for just a moment on all you have accomplished with the support of your family, your friends, and the faculty and staff of your college, Minnesota West. You have not only survived, but thrived during the greatest disruption of higher education. Your graduation at this moment is an accomplishment that no one else has earned. What I want to celebrate is that you are the hope of tomorrow, the faces of our future. The largest recovery in history starts today with the smallest of ripples. As you transfer to a four-year school or use your skills in your career, you will be creating ripples of recovery. These ripples will affect you, your family, but then our communities, our state, and yes, our great nation. The hardships you have endured, the perseverance you have demonstrated will dramatically reshape the world around us. You will pave the road to social and economic recovery because of your talents, thoughtfulness, and tenacity. I find great hope and peace in this fact. I am so proud to have been your college president, and we can't wait to read your future headlines. Congratulations to each of you.
I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn, and we are left to those who help us most to grow if we let them, and we help them in return. But I don't know if I believe that's true, but I know I'm who I am today because I knew you. Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes the sun, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the road. Who can say if I've been changed for the better because I knew you? I have been changed for good.
It may well be that we will never meet again in this lifetime. So let me say before we part, so much of me is made of what I learned from you. You'll be with me.
You'll be with me like a handprint on my heart. And now whatever way our stories end, I know you have rewritten mine by being my friend. Like a ship pulled from its mooring by a wind of the sea, like a saint drove by a skybird in a distant wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better?
Because I knew you.
Because I knew you, I have been changed for good.
And just to clear the air, I ask forgiveness for the things you've done
ship will toss
as it passes us
by a wind of the sea.
like a stream that meets a
Like a sea cup by a
halfway through the wide. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? I do believe I have been changed for the better. And because I knew you,
Because I knew you, because I know you, I have been changed for
Tonight's commencement speaker is Dr. Rita Miller. Dr. Rita Miller has been the medical laboratory technician and phlebotomy program director at Minnesota West since she developed the programs in 1994. Rita received her Bachelor's of Science in Microbiology from South Dakota State University, Healthcare Risk Management certification from the University of Health Science Chicago Medical School, Masters of Science in Clinical Laboratory Science from University of North Dakota, and her Doctorate of Education from St. Cloud State University. Rita is an active member of the American Society of Clinical Laboratory Scientists. She is the Southwest Minnesota representative and has several awards for her outstanding service and commitment. Rita travels throughout the United States to perform site visits for MLT program accreditation for the National Accrediting Agency for Clinical Laboratory Science. Additionally, she resides on the Phlebotomy Accreditation Review Committee. Most recently, Rita has been a reviewer for Rodak Carr Clinical Hematology Atlas and has authored a chapter in Bailey and Scott's Diagnostic Microbiology textbook. She remains working as a microbiologist at Avera McKinnon in Sioux Falls. Rita feels that continued work in the laboratory is beneficial for student outcome, as she can teach them the most current information and practices in microbiology and the medical laboratory sciences. Rita is this year's Minnesota West nominee for Board of Trustees Outstanding Educator. Please welcome Dr. Rita Miller.
Dear graduates, today I have the honor of speaking to you all in a rare and unusual format, during a rare and unusual time in our lives and history. Not only is this my first virtual graduation ceremony experiences, but it is also the college's first and hopefully the last. This past weeks have shown our power and ability to adapt and overcome. First, I want to extend my congratulations to you and your families on your educational accomplishments at Minnesota West. This past year has been an interesting ride. You'd almost think like a roller coaster, up and down, sideways, turns and twirls. Alas, we are towards the end of the ride. The students here at Minnesota West are remarkable, balancing a demanding educational program, personal life, work life, as well as goals can be challenging to us all. You have done not only that, but has also transitioned through all the changes in the delivery of your program of study. Some of your programs that were totally face-to-face are now totally online. When I started preparing this speech, my initial thought was, how do I describe the students at Minnesota West? I quickly wrote down the first words that came to my head. Of course, there were many, but my first paper scribbles included the following: amazing, awesome, strong, adaptable, and most of all, resilient. Resilience was the one that stood out to me. Why? Because as instructors of Minnesota West, the faculty really get to know our students. We learn many of the challenges that our students encounter in their personal and work lives. This year, I saw firsthand how our students overcome the obstacles of letting go of their normal. It was not just in the classroom and their day-to-day living as well. Nothing was what one would call normal. It was your resilience that got you here today, and that, my friends, is a skill that will take you a long way in life. The grit and resilience you have demonstrated made me think of a quote from Jodi Picoult. The human capacity for the burden is like bamboo, far more flexible and stronger than you'd ever believe at first glance. Bamboo is a very light building material, yet it is 3 times stronger than timber. When compared with steel, bamboo can withstand more tension or stretching before breaking. The very dense fibers in each bamboo cane give the plant extreme flexibility, allowing it to bend without snapping. In an earthquake, a bamboo forest is actually a very safe place to take shelter because it can withstand a 9.0 magnitude earthquake. Bamboo is light, strong, efficient, and effective. Like the bamboo plant, you were able to bend when you needed to, and you survived. Your flexibility prevented you from breaking under stress and pressure. The pandemic has taught us all, including administration, staff, and faculty, how to adapt, be creative, be efficient and effective, and be strong. Believe me, this has been emotional for all of us. But always remember, trying times and difficult life events make us stronger. Try to remember a time in your life when someone hurt your feelings. No one enjoys having his feelings hurt, and perhaps it wasn't intentional, but we learn a life lesson from the experience. First of all, we learn that we'll never treat anyone like that. And second of all, we learn how to respond appropriately in certain situations. Perhaps next time, a different response is necessary, or no response at all. It is these types of lessons in life that are not always pleasant that build our character and make us stronger. Most importantly, it provides us with the tools to be successful in similar future situations and to focus on having proper perspectives in life. It may teach you never to give up or to learn when to let go. It may show you the values of being positive or what it will take to reach your goals and dreams. What helps you persevere is your resilience, commitment, and strength, which you have shown by being here today. This strength comes from navigating through the many trials and tribulations that you have endured throughout your life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. At Minnesota West, we have made it our mission to help students develop the skills and educations they will need as the individual futures begin to take shape. When you learn with purpose, you prepare yourself for a career and a life beyond graduation. We not only teach you hands-on education, but we teach you professionalism, critical thinking skills, communication skills, diversity, teamwork, leadership. Sometimes you may have wondered why faculty were so hard on you. Why did I have to do that paper over 5 times? Why does she always take a half a point off every time I forget my units on my test results? It was only off by 1/16 of an inch. It is because we care about you and we are molding you and preparing you for the future. We are establishing a foundation on which you can build a future and your life. These skills can be applied to all elements of life, professionally and personally. Every one of you will be seeking employment, and some of you already are employed. I challenge you to make a difference, not only in the career, but in the community that you live in. You are essential to the social and economic health of Southwest Minnesota, South Dakota, Iowa, and the surrounding communities. Christopher Reeve said, "A hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles." You are all heroes. Believe in yourself, be kind, support each other, and grow. In a time when isolation is necessary and we are under social distancing demands, your ability to find and maintain togetherness and be supportive will continue to reach new heights. In my eyes, you are awesome, amazing, strong, adaptable, and most of all, resilient. I wish you the very best in your future.
Greetings, students. I'm Devinder Malhotra, Chancellor of Minnesota State. Graduation is a seminal moment in your educational journey, and I know you and your families have been anticipating it for a long time. The resolve and grace you have demonstrated in persevering through your studies are all the more impressive and inspiring in light of the challenges and obstacles this global health crisis has thrown your way. Your academic accomplishments are truly amazing. Among these struggles and sacrifices, I recognize you did not get to walk across that graduation stage with your family and friends in the audience, cheering and celebrating your achievement. Your family, friends, faculty, and staff who supported you are so proud of you and your accomplishments. We are all rooting for your success. Congratulations, graduates.
Hello, graduates. I am Jay Coles, Chair of the Minnesota State Board of Trustees. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I commend you for your hard work, sacrifice, and dedication to your education. The professors who mentored you, the staff who guided you, your friends, your family, and the people who are dedicated to ensuring that all Minnesotans have access to a college education, every single one of us is excited to learn about the success that comes as you continue your journey. And, dear graduates, know as you leave this place that it and the 37 colleges and universities of Minnesota State will be here for you throughout your career, no matter your need or the place you find yourself on your educational journey. Congratulations, graduates.
Minnesota West would like to recognize its retirees this year. We would like to thank the following employees for their years of service and congratulate them on their retirement. Daryl Bartholomew, Customized Training Faculty. Connie Hacker, Customized Training Support Staff. Jackie Loggy, Cosmetology Instructor. Tom Midthune, Mechatronics Faculty Member. Terry Peterson, Nursing Services Tutor. And Lee Lucht, Phi Theta Kappa Advisor, Diversity Coordinator, as well as faculty member. Congratulations all on your retirement.
In the program, you will find markings that denote honors. The double asterisk is for high academic honors, recognizing a GPA of 3.75 to 4.0. Academic honors is signified by a single asterisk for a GPA of 3.5 to 3.74, and a diamond for the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society. All veterans will be receiving a red, white, and blue cord. Accountant, Associate of Applied Science. Sarah Bolton, Fulda, Minnesota. Melody T. Morphew, Lakefield, Minnesota. Paige Marie Olson, Dawson, Minnesota. Rose Schultz, Madison, Minnesota. Cecilia Sexton, Jasper, Minnesota. Karen Leah Wallert, Mountain Lake, Minnesota. Accounting Certificate. Kylie Nicholson, Pipestone, Minnesota. Amy Jean Olson, Brainerd, Minnesota. Chelsea Ann Thompson, Windham, Minnesota. Accounting Clerk, Diploma. Jeffrey Allen Saleta, Jackson, Minnesota. Administrative Assistant, Associate of Applied Science. Ashley Sue Monier, Laverne, Minnesota. Kylie Nicholson, Pipestone, Minnesota. Megan Ray Setterquist, Fulda, Minnesota. Agriculture Business, Associate of Science. Jacob Louise Altena, Rock Rapids, Iowa. Joshua Ty Bonema, Sioux Center, Iowa. Grace Moline, Slayton, Minnesota. Colin Lee Mazers, Sibley, Iowa. Haley Lynn Rupert, Marshall, Minnesota. Automotive Technician, Diploma. Victor Alvarez, Worthington, Minnesota. Elijah Earhart, Lakefield, Minnesota. Ethan D. Gewert, New Ulm, Minnesota. Zachariah Timothy Golda, Fulda, Minnesota. Zachary Heinrichs, Lakefield, Minnesota. Lei Lertu, Worthington, Minnesota. Franklin Lopez, Worthington, Minnesota. Herman Ricardo Lopez Lopez, Worthington, Minnesota. Timothy James Motters, Jr., Jackson, Minnesota. Lei Domu, Fulda, Minnesota. Turner James Rogers, Worthington, Minnesota. Sa T. Say, Worthington, Minnesota. Esteban Diego Soto, Bigelow, Minnesota. Automotive Technology, Associate of Applied Science. Franklin Nehemias Vilgren Lopez, Worthington, Minnesota. Russum Mabratum Wolde, Worthington, Minnesota. Biofuels Technology, Ethanol Certificate. Caleb Amos Adgate, Lake Odessa, Michigan. Dustin Shiz, New Lisbon, Wisconsin. Dustin L. Marquis, Brecksville, Ohio. Business Administration, Associate of Arts. Jonathan Maldonado Ramos, Toa Baja, Puerto Rico. Business Management, Associate of Applied Science. Octavio Adrian Loza, Worthington, Minnesota. Joshua Olson, Fairmont, Minnesota. Jose Alonso Rodriguez Cerda, Windham, Minnesota. Rose Schultz, Madison, Minnesota. Amanda Versavel, Marshall, Minnesota. Business Management, Associate of Science. Kylie Marie Hansen, Cottonwood, Minnesota. Antonio Cerda Juarez, Windham, Minnesota. Journey L. Kalam, Welcome, Minnesota. Emily K. Kareen Cadet, Redwood Falls, Minnesota. Kara Martin, Adrian, Minnesota. Allison Nicole Odens, Jasper, Minnesota. Joshua Olson, Fairmont, Minnesota. Christopher Romero, Austin, Minnesota. Anthony James Struffs, Brookings, South Dakota. Athena Thompson, Blue Earth, Minnesota. Brandon Tyler Vashti, Aurora, Colorado. Business Management, Computer Emphasis, Associate of Science. Rosa Linda Nyberg, Brewster, Minnesota. Allison Nicole Odens, Jasper, Minnesota. Chelsea Ann Thompson, Windham, Minnesota. Carpentry, Certificate. Braden Bentz, Pipestone, Minnesota. Isaac P. Berg, Pipestone, Minnesota. Kane Aaron Butcher, Woodstock, Minnesota. Brandon J. Cooper, Pipestone, Minnesota. Dawson Greg Johnson, Pipestone, Minnesota. Mason Krakow, Pipestone, Minnesota. Eric Lang, Pipestone, Minnesota. Damian E. Mills, Jasper, Minnesota. Carter J. Patratz, Holland, Minnesota. Lucas J. Winter, Pipestone, Minnesota. Carpentry, Diploma. Wade Bushelman, Ivanhoe, Minnesota. Rachel Kafal, Pipestone, Minnesota. Isaac Schmitz, Carlos, Minnesota.
The following students have earned the Associate of Science in Child Development: Allison Castor, Marshall, Minnesota; Haley Renee Cobb from Granite Falls; Samantha Jean Halverson of Granite Falls; Charlene Jeanette Lund of Granite Falls; Anna Pina from Montevideo; Tiffany Rose Tennis of Clarkfield. The following student has earned the Cisco Networking Certificate: Noah Johnson from Clara City. The following students have received certificates in Community Health Worker: Angelica De Acosta from Ormsby, Minnesota; Noemi Flores from Wilmer; Kaylee Moo from Worthington; Isaac Rubel from Mendota Heights; Hilda Sanchez Herrera from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The following students have received the Computer and Networking Technology Associate of Applied Science: Hunter James Henderson from Flandreau, South Dakota; Sean Plume from Aurora, South Dakota; Sean Stemper from Montevideo, Minnesota; Michael Watkins from Mountain Lake. The following student has received a certificate in Computer Maintenance and Repair: Sean Lehman from Dawson, Minnesota. In Computer Support Technician, Ryan Evers from Windham, Minnesota. In Cosmetology, receiving a diploma, Joanna Acosta from St. James, Minnesota. Kimberly M. Carrion from St. James, Minnesota. Chloe Elizabeth Denton from Welcome, Minnesota. Graham Dinnell from Lake Benton, Minnesota. Savannah Irvin from Fairmont. Brianna Nicole Fest from Mountain Lake. Caesar Flores, Jr., Hawick, Minnesota. Haley Ann Harbitz from St. James. Laniel Kasporetz from Pipestone, Minnesota. Lizzie Cruz from Jackson. Brenda Lee Lopez from Fairmont. Brittany Paige McWilliams from Marshall. Diana Nicole Ness from Lake Wilson. Emily Jade Holes from Jackson. Leslie Resendez from Worthington. Keely Rossau from Lakefield. Eva Marie Scholten from Russell. Brooklyn Shute from Jackson. Reagan Mackenzie Ann Skolin from Round Lake. Sonia Marie Van Dam from Tracy. The following students have received an Associate of Applied Science in Dental Assistant: Sydney Ella Bartnick from Dawson. Taylor Christine Brignelson from Worthington. Diana Rose DeSmit from Minneota. Carrie A. Hoogie from Fulda. Tiffany Emily Nyans from Minneota. Victoria Lee Voigt from Gary, South Dakota. Dental Assistant Diploma goes to Alyssa Noel Boinma from Worthington. Carly Jean Gossler from Marshall. Emily Halverson from Maynard. Alicia Joe Lee from Canby. Lenore Meldano from Worthington. Sandy Ray Zamora from Canby. The following student has received a Desktop Support Specialist Certificate: Andrea Jo Boomgardner from Worthington. The following students have received a certificate in Advanced Diesel: Austin Bond from Wood Lake. Tyler J. Sommerfelt from Cottonwood. In Diesel Mechanics, Ag and Truck, receiving a diploma is Christian Enriquez from Renville. Nick Kittleson from Dawson. Nicholas Ludwig from Sleepy Eye. Derek Marlowe of Redwood Falls. Jorge L. Ramirez from Renville. Joshua Kevin Sex from Appleton. Maxwell Brock Schumacher from Hendricks. Reed Hunter Tonick from Willow Lake, South Dakota. Receiving a certificate in diesel powertrain and hydraulics. Austin Vaughn from Wood Lake. Tyler J. Sommerfeld of Cottonwood. And receiving a diploma in diesel technician, ag and truck. Christian Enriquez of Renville, Minnesota. Nick Kittleson of Dawson. Nicholas Ludwig of Sleepy Eye. Derek Marlowe of Redwood Falls. Jorge L. Ramirez from Renville. Joshua Kevin Sachs from Appleton. Maxwell Brock Schumacher from Hendricks. Reed Hunter Tonick from Willow Lake, South Dakota. Receiving the Associate of Applied Science in Diesel Technology, Nick Kittleson from Dawson, Minnesota. Adam M. Ladd of Springfield. Nicholas Ludwig of Sleepy Eye. Maxwell Brock Schumacher of Hendricks. And an educational paraprofessional receiving a certificate are the following students: Laura Jasmine Gatelin from Worthington, Jordan Geiselman from Worthington, Jeremy R. Iwan of Worthington.
Diploma, Electric Utility Substation Technician, Bradley Berg, Superior, Wisconsin. Associate of Applied Science, Electric Utility Substation Technology, Colin Ray Kirkland, Bagley, Iowa. Brody Allen Messner, Henderson. Associate of Applied Science, Electrician, Colby Alexander Azevedo, Canby. Colin Andrew Brennan, Canby. Ryan Bush, Alpha. Wayne Basil Fisk, Jackson. Leighton J. Gale, Dundee. John Randall Hilgers, Belle Plaine. Ian D. Hohenstein, Lakefield. Liam J. Kelly, Wyndham. Nicholas J. Lindstrom, Hanley Falls. Grant Alexander Medetsky, Blue Earth. Garrett Nordang, Granite Falls. Augustine Obinwa, Brooklyn Park. Associate of Applied Science, Electrician, Dylan Travis Peterson, Welcome. Michael Thomas Schumann, Jackson. Diploma, Electrician, Lee John Anderson, Cottonwood. Grant Ansel, Canby. Andrew Bennett, Marshall. Austin Claith, Marshall. Nathan Knutson, Lamberton. Anthony James Edwin Crumwitty, Tremont. Nathan B. Lofgren, Mankato. Tucker J. Milburn, Odin. Cody Otto, Nicollet. Gage Roberts, Spirit Lake, Iowa. Freeman James Scott, Jr., Jackson. Dalton John Smith, Wyndham. Matthew N. Strom, Jackson. Ian Tebben, Madison. Ethan Allen Thorson, Hardwick. Nicholas Leroy Urban, Madelia. Christopher Allen Vandekieft, Huron Lake. Joshua Lloyd Wolling, Franklin. A certificate in emergency medical services, Megan C. Robbins, Fairmont. A certificate in emergency medical technician, Dina Patricia Blaschko, Clarks Grove. An Associate of Applied Science, Energy Technical Specialist, Jason A. Anensen, Laverne. A certificate, Esthetician, Meadow Anne-Marie Espenson, Wyndham. Associate of Applied Science, Healthcare Administrative Assistant, Tanya Marie Axford, Montevideo. Angela Marie Winter, Montevideo. A diploma in healthcare administrative assistant, Elbla Ali Abdi, St. Cloud. A certificate in healthcare supervision and leadership, Heidi Ann Pavick, Ivanhoe. Taylor A. Pelzel, Sleepy Eye. An Associate of Science in Human Services, Jacqueline Rondini, Slayton, Minnesota. Associate of Science, Human Services, Child Development Track, Shelby Page Porter, Pine Ridge, South Dakota. Elizabeth Ramos Loza, Worthington. An Associate of Science, Human Services, Generalist Track, Catherine Ann Buchholz, Rochester. Associate of Science, Individualized Studies, Jeffrey William Cook, Laverne. Quinton F. Greer, Louisville. Jeremy R. Iwan, Worthington. Andrew R. Ortiz, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Associate of Applied Science, Information Security and Assurance, Ryan Evers, Wyndham. Hunter James Henderson, Flandreau, South Dakota. Joseph Cook, Huron Lake. Sean Plume, Aurora, South Dakota. Sean Stamper, Montevideo. Michael Watkins, Mountain Lake. A certificate in IT Workplace Specialist, Andrea Jo Baumgartner, Worthington. A diploma in the Lamb and Wool program, Shannon Buchert, Russell, Minnesota. Eli Orthman, Sutherland, Iowa. Associate of Applied Science, Law Enforcement, Theodore Samuel Dale Cromwell, Huron Lake. Tesla Bailey Crowell, Wyndham. Nain Cruz, Worthington. Adelaida Esqueda, St. James. Ryan Scott Golomblecki, Bigelow. Nakia Miguel Guyton Jr., Franksville, Wisconsin. Jorge Herrera, St. James. Madison Hicks, Redwood Falls. Theodore L. Kess, Shakopee. Sydney Kunlabout, Adrian. Richard Felix Mendoza, Slayton. Lancho Morque, Worthington. Dalton Slinger, Fulda. Parker Stevens, Truman. Arnold Logan Waldner, Worthington. Malachi Abraham Walker, Brown Lake. An Associate of Science in Law Enforcement, Tanatu Saw, Worthington.
The following students have earned a Liberal Arts Associate of Arts degree. Celeste Vivian Ahmet, Slayton, Minnesota. Ann Anenson, Minneota, Minnesota. Mary Catherine Bailey, Fergus Falls, Minnesota. Gracie Barber, Worthington, Minnesota. Sydney Ella Bartunik, Dawson, Minnesota. Gabriella Lene Blees, White, South Dakota. Cora Elizabeth Bolt, Minneota, Minnesota. Kylie Jo Brewer, Wilmot, Minnesota. Titanaro Bumpus, Racine, Wisconsin. Dominic W. Burns, Worthington, Minnesota. Christoph Kavantu Banya, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Jamin Nathaniel Cheek, Waldorf, Maryland. Cade Kenneth Clark, Dundee, Minnesota. Kayla J. Clark, Fulda, Minnesota. Lisbeth Comparin, Worthington, Minnesota. Chase R. Dorman, Waban, Minnesota. Michael E. Dosch, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Jade Alexis Firestone, Trent, South Dakota. Grace Marie Fields, Jackson, Minnesota. Alexis Dawn Freezy, Fulda, Minnesota. Nathan Carl Godke, Fulda, Minnesota. Sophia Gutierrez, Worthington, Minnesota. Hannah D. Hammerschmidt, Madelia, Minnesota. Pa Ta Tu, Pipestone, Minnesota. Zipporah Lang, Brewster, Minnesota. Mackenzie Ann Hockel, Windham, Minnesota. Jeremy Hopfinger, Tucson, Arizona. Rebecca Hopfinger, Tucson, Arizona. Stone W. Irvine, Clarkfield, Minnesota. Blaney Johnson, Jackson, Minnesota. Braden Timothy Johnson, Janesville, Minnesota. Morgan Johnson, Boyd, Minnesota. Emily Karakes, Fairmont, Minnesota. Katie Marie Corner, Morgan, Minnesota. Delaney Renee Cool, Worthington, Minnesota. Nicholas Edward James Laporta, Greeley, Colorado. Laura Larananga Quinteros, Worthington, Minnesota. Kiana Marie Letty, Brewster, Minnesota. Tyler Robert Linder, Worthington, Minnesota. Ethan Hunter Lindley, Lakefield, Minnesota. Anna Laura Macias Escada, St. James, Minnesota. Alexis Martin, Redwood Falls, Minnesota. Samuel Thomas Martin, Brewster, Minnesota. Haley Ann Miller, Ocheanda, Iowa. Mackenzie Sierra Miller, Worthington, Minnesota. Cheyenne Janae Minnis, Jackson, Minnesota. Nolan Scott Mark Monahan, Yakima, Washington. Christopher Morales, T. South Dakota. Jacob George Nassers, Worthington, Minnesota. Allison Nicole Odens, Jasper, Minnesota. Jose Alvera Sibley, Iowa. Isaiah Abraham Perry, Granite Falls, Minnesota. Megan Josephine Powers, Worthington, Minnesota. Mercedes Lynn Rayleigh, Rushmore, Minnesota. Alexis Sierra Rain Ramsey, Rock Rapids, Iowa. Kendra Marie Rautenkranz, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Carolina Rodriguez, Worthington, Minnesota. Alexandria Lee Roloff, Adrian, Minnesota. Ronalda S. Sandoval, Worthington, Minnesota. Victoria Hope Schutz, Windham, Minnesota. Emily Scripture, Elgin, Minnesota. Jordan Louise Scholes, Worthington, Minnesota. Stephen Sauksawan, Worthington, Minnesota. Hope Renee Stanton, Worthington, Minnesota. London Lee Swan, Brewster, Minnesota. Jared Wesley Thompson, Montevideo, Minnesota. Jarvis Harlan Thompson, Montevideo, Minnesota. Emmanuel Ohamo Tor, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Abby Ulrich, Ortonville, Minnesota. Haley Rose Unke, Huron Lake, Minnesota. Ashley Ann Wagner, Huron Lake, Minnesota. Sage Isabel Wall, Mountain Lake, Minnesota. Cornell K. Washington II, Calumet City, Illinois. Kelsey Weber, Pipestone, Minnesota. Autumn Wenzel, Buckeye, Arizona. Caitlin Ann White, Duluth, Minnesota. And Brandy May Wright, Rushmore, Minnesota.
The following students have earned the Management Certificate. Alan Saxwana, Worthington, Minnesota. Craig J. Zinno, Pipestone, Minnesota. The following student has received the Management and Supervision in Healthcare Associate of Science. Crystal Marie Nelson, Jackson, Minnesota. The following students have earned their Mechatronics Associate of Applied Science. Abibi Afswa, Worthington, Minnesota. Josh Brown, Mankato, Minnesota. The following students have earned their mechatronics diploma. Abibi Afswa, Worthington, Minnesota. Cragen R. Dirks, Fulda, Minnesota. Wilmont Knuckles, Worthington, Minnesota. Brandon J. Miller, Worthington, Minnesota. Zacchio Emmanuel Filippo, Worthington, Minnesota. Sergio Manuel Talamantes Jr., Worthington, Minnesota. The following students have earned their Medical Assistant, Associate of Applied Science. Carly Christensen, Pipestone, Minnesota. Paula K. Mogard, Franklin, Minnesota. Sarah Reimers, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Christine Ann Torberg, Richmond, Minnesota. The following students have earned their Medical Assistant Diploma. Becca May Knobloch, Rock Rapids, Iowa. The following students have earned their Medical Coding Specialist Diploma. Ciara Tyler Marie Grant, Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Emily Lannon, Gowanna. Glenn Burney, Montana. Amanda Kimberly Johnson, Glencoe, Minnesota. Samantha Jo Pankinen, Pipestone, Minnesota. Tara Lynn Staub, Clarkfield, Minnesota. Amy Thomas, Danvers, Minnesota. Angela Marie Winter, Montevideo, Minnesota. Cassandra Jansen, Laverne, Minnesota. The following students have earned their Medical Laboratory Technician, Associate of Applied Science. Bahola N. Bahandri, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Chandra Bahandri, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Gopi Gamer, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Isabel Rose Hubbard, Lakefield, Minnesota. Bernard Kiuri, Windham, Minnesota. Gracia Maldonado, Worthington, Minnesota. Kini Faye U, Worthington, Minnesota. Blanca Angelica Pomeraxic, Edgerton, Minnesota. Pramelia Ray, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The following students have earned the Nail Technician Certificate. Anne Marie Hansen, Windham, Minnesota. Chase Madison, Jackson, Minnesota.
The following students have earned a Nursing Associate of Science degree. Olabisi Rahimat Adibeo, Marshall, Minnesota. Esther D. Egbor, East Bethel, Minnesota. Jerusalem Jerma Egignahu, Worthington, Minnesota. Hannah Marie Anderson, Dawson, Minnesota. Nicole K. Archwell, Glenwood, Minnesota. Darby Biesemeyer, Worthington, Minnesota. Sabrina Ann Bloomquist, Jackson, Minnesota. Alexa Borth, Fairfax, Minnesota. April Brogard, Holloway, Minnesota. Melissa Joy Bruss, Marshall, Minnesota. Betsy Chipquani, Little Canada, Minnesota. Jennifer Dieterman, Mankato, Minnesota. Melissa Jean Ellenson, New Ulm, Minnesota. Wilson G. Egan, Minnesota. Richard Mogaka Gentanto, Otsego, Minnesota. Courtney K. Gonnerman, Laverne, Minnesota. Brielle Greasy, Truman, Minnesota. Chad Orrin Griffith, Worthington, Minnesota. Courtney J. Harchie, Jackson, Minnesota. Dana J. Heisman, Hills, Minnesota. Catherine Kamocho Arari, Plymouth, Minnesota. Thane Karubo Isaac, New Hope, Minnesota. Marissa Jo Janish, Madison, Minnesota. John Jassam, Andover, Minnesota. Molly Johnson, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Julia W. Kiriuki, Plymouth, Minnesota. Carrie Knutson, Benson, Minnesota. Owen Kipkemi Kosky, Marshall, Minnesota. Mallory Langford, Redwood Falls, Minnesota. Ashley Sue Linneman, Kenyon, Minnesota. Danielle Lingen, Lowry, Minnesota. Amanda Sue Matson, Windham, Minnesota. Connie Ray Mead, Pipestone, Minnesota. Jarius Gitamo Momani, Ramsey, Minnesota. Ellen Jasari Monari, Hopkins, Minnesota. Veronica Mongear, Plymouth, Minnesota. Danica Morse, Minneota, Minnesota. Edwina K. Mosiamo, Marshall, Minnesota. Rosalita Wasanga Mukanga, Marshall, Minnesota. Katie Nelson, Bellevue, Minnesota. Charity Naglo, Marshall, Minnesota. Ashley Ann Nicholson, Madison, Minnesota. Justina Abigail Nwakama, Marshall, Minnesota. Celestine Nikario Naguan, Burnsville, Minnesota. Wilfred Obongo Nyan Jersey, Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Vincent McClord Nayosi, Burnsville, Minnesota. Ruth Achwangi, Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Damon Okimwa, Ramsey, Minnesota. Rosie Ngozi Okir, St. Louis Park, Minnesota. Evans Onsango Onchari, St. Paul, Minnesota. Benny Onchamba, Maple Grove, Minnesota. Hudson Onsayer, Bloomington, Minnesota. Benna Onsace, Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Antonia Onya, Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Phyllis Mora Osimo, Mankato, Minnesota. Mariah Faye Paulson, Pipestone, Minnesota. Jacqueline Nyangu Riley, Coon Rapids, Minnesota. Stacy Ann Rinkin, Laverne, Minnesota. Leah Riggi, Echo, Minnesota. Heidi Jo Roos, Hardwick, Minnesota. Alexandra Erin Salzwedel, Lakefield, Minnesota. Lois Chipkori Seiji, Jordan, Minnesota. Amy Elizabeth Simmer, St. Louis Park, Minnesota. Irene Simon, Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Tyler Joseph Thielges, Marshall, Minnesota. Carissa Thomas, Fairmont, Minnesota. Barbara Thompson, Marshall, Minnesota. Bridget Varpness, Cottonwood, Minnesota. Patricia Elizabeth Vidano Trejo, Jackson, Minnesota. Sarah Elizabeth Pearl Warren, Pipestone, Minnesota. Elizabeth Wasink, Edgerton, Minnesota. Deanna Weber, Black Duck, Minnesota. Tammy Zweifel, Painesville, Minnesota. The following students have earned a pharmacy technician certificate. Katie Fabiola Herrera Arivalo, Worthington, Minnesota. And Catherine Michaels, Pipestone, Minnesota. These students have earned a phlebotomy certificate. Jaden Bradley Beck, Laverne, Minnesota. Connor A. Strangey, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And earning a plumbing and heating technology diploma, Mark Buswitz, Westbrook, Minnesota. Israel J. Fay, Edgerton, Minnesota. Christian Haig, Pipestone, Minnesota. Alec Joseph John, Marshall, Minnesota. and Tanner Sterrett, Pipestone, Minnesota. Earning a Power Sports diploma, Tanner John Reberts, Laverne, Minnesota.
The following students have earned a diploma in Powerline. Grant Darrell Anderson, Dumont. Shaler Dalton Beadle, Parkersburg, Iowa. Isaac Callens, Marshall. Tyler Jared Crawford, Granite Falls. Anthony J. DeSmet, Minneota. Colton Ebel, Hanley Falls. Jordan Falconer, Marshall. Tate Bradley Feek, Rochester. Braden Full, Canby. Joseph A. Gefje, Lanesboro. Joshua L. Gasik, New Ulm. Cole Hansen, Hendricks. Clayton Brian Henn Sr. III, Buffalo Center, Iowa. Austin David Earlbeck, Lamberton. Wyatt Lynch Jackson, Benton, Iowa. Corey Lee Johnson, Granite Falls. Todd M. Larson, Lakefield. Brady William Nickel, Mountain Lake. Evan J. Altadrabuns, Lakefield. Jordan Bruce Osborne, Medelia. Edvin Perez Ambrosio, Butterfield. Joshua Peterson, Granite Falls. Noah M. Ringnell, Sherburne. Jacob Simpson, Lakefield. Wyatt Tullifson, Sioux City, Iowa. Bryson Wallace, Greenfield, Iowa. And Blake H. Wellstead, Maple Lake. The following student has earned a diploma in Powerline Technician. Bradley Berg of Superior, Wisconsin. The following students have earned an Associate Applied Science degree in Powerline Technology. Jonathan Olson, Austin. Taylor Timothy Shower, Glencoe. Trent Shefty, Granite Falls. The following students have earned a diploma in practical nursing. Semasola Olamide Mbobola, Marshall. Haley Bakken, Westbrook. Olamide Balagun, Marshall. Kelsey Barstead, Slayton. Christina Lynn Blum, Marshall. Jamie Marie Case, Fairfax. Marlene Shilamo, Marshall. Jemima Shepkoje, Marshall. Amanda Rose Cordy, Worthington. Lexi Covey, Mountain Lake. Josie Crow, Magnolia. Vanessa Erickson, Cottonwood. Lona Eloy, Marshall. Leslie Heather Frenzel, Benson. Joseph N. Garvey, Marshall. Miriam Gobazada, St. Paul. Kenzie M. Gillow, Marshall. Peggy Harberts, Dawson. Sherry Hermanson, Montevideo. Vicki Hernandez, Worthington. Nicholas Ruby, Medelia. Amanda Mae Jensen, Westbrook. Andrea Johnson, Montevideo. Nicole Jorgensen, Watson. Betty Jeligat Kime, Marshall. Elude Capruto, Marshall. Valentine Girano Koros, Marshall. Karen Koje, Marshall. Heather Cruzy, Adrian. Jeremy Langford, Appleton. Amanda Larson, Hopkins. Madison Renee Leahy, Brewster. Heather A. Laurie, Beardsford, South Dakota. Avery V. Locken, Canby. Natalie Lopez, Worthington. Lexi Mae Munderscheid, Lake Wilson. Angela Mithun, Granite Falls. Jacqueline Perez Morales, Worthington. Haley Mosing, Dawson. Hilda Murray, Marshall. Joseph Shuka Odra, Nigeria. Janessa Nicole Reed, Woodlake. Catherine Ryline, Redwood Falls. Rylan Lumen Reyes, Ellsworth. Estefany Marbella Reyes Rivera, Sioux Falls. Fatimat Omotoya Rufai, Marshall. Maria Imelda Sandoval, Marshall. Addie Kate Schaefer, Woodlake. Annabelle Della Cruz Schomer, Dawson. Sybil M. Schultz, Russell. Brianne Shriver, Fairmont. Victoria Lynn Skorcheski, Ivanhoe. Tani Ray Slagle, Lucan. Brianna Steen, Jackson. Goashua Vang, Marshall. And Amy K. Verstrady, Ghent.
A diploma in precision machining. Jonathan Gudiel Barrios, Ortonville. Mitchell J. Benson, Tracy. Kyle Christensen, Milroy. Christinia Dahl, Hanley Falls. Christopher E. Robas, Wabasso. Taylor St. Pierre, Cottonwood. Michael Tim, Granite Falls. A diploma in production agriculture. Robert Harms, Little Rock, Iowa. An Associate of Applied Science in Radiologic Technology. Courtney I. Engler, Wyndham. Elizabeth Gillette, Slayton. Casey Goblish, Ballatin. Jamie Jones, Lakefield. Kyle Scott Landon, Edgerton. Jasmine Marie Ober, Worthington. Sabrina Ortiz, Butterfield. Heidi Ann Pavick, Ivanhoe. Taylor A. Pelzel, Sleepy Eye. Samantha J. Poland, Wabasso. Caitlin Kathleen Romehilt, Waterville. A certificate in solar photovoltaic technician. Wayne Basil Fisk, Jackson. Ian D. Hohenstein, Lakefield. Liam J. Kelly, Wyndham. Anthony James Edwin Crumwitty, Trimont. Gage Roberts, Spirit Lake, Iowa. Michael Thomas Schumann, Jackson. Ethan Allen Thorson, Hardwick. A certificate in supervisory leadership and management. Abby Klug, Maple Lake. An Associate of Applied Science in Surgical Technology. Ashlyn Bentley, Marshall. Savannah Danielson, Slayton. Brenna Olson, Hendricks. Ku Ge Pa, Fulda. A certificate in welding. Chase Nelson Biernert, Marshall. Jackson David Chamberlain, Marshall. Zachary James Devon, Ghent. Jaden Michael Gannett, Marshall. Nicholas James Kaiser, Marshall. Parker Daniel McNeil, Marshall. Caleb Christian Mercy, Marshall. A diploma in welding. Gage Michael Anderson, Worthington. Dawat Belu Asefa, Worthington. Derek Bielke, St. James. Bruce Jesse Bernal, Marshall. Turner Hunter Boots, Lakefield. Hunter Stephen Cam, Worthington. Christopher Cherda, Worthington. McKinley Bernard DeVries, Mountain Lake. Sander Dagoberto Diaz, Worthington. Lee Drahota, Jackson. Helwa Gay, Worthington. Fathawi Gabrestadik, Worthington. Matthew Hansen, Marshall. Brandon N. Karsten, Milroy. Edwin Hernandez Matias, Worthington. Josue Enrique Mendoza Mendez, Worthington. Yvonne Ramirez, Worthington. Isaac Nathaniel Williams, Brewster. An Associate of Applied Science in Wind Energy Technology. Colby Alexander Azevedo, Canby.
Minnesota West graduating class of 2020, please rise wherever you are today and with those who may be with you. By virtue of the authority vested in me by the state of Minnesota and Minnesota State Board of Trustees, I hereby confer upon you the degrees for which you have been recommended with all the rights, honor, and privileges appertaining thereto. Blue Jays, congratulations. You are now officially the newest alumni of Minnesota West. We are so proud of all you have done during this unparalleled moment. But this moment does not define who you are and what you are. It is your talents, thoughtfulness, and tenacity which carried you through this crisis, but will also propel us into the future. Thank you. It has been absolutely humbling to witness your growth during this period.